Hello friends. About 70% of the friends who watch my videos are not subscribed, and I would be very happy if you did. Also, don't forget to press the like button and leave your comments. Your interaction makes the content reach everyone and contributes to the growth of the channel. Thank you all. From which country or city do you follow the channel?
Listen to me real close now because this matters a lot. The trucking depot boss tapped his weathered fingers nervously on the polished oak desk and let his tired eyes drift over its smooth, glossy surface. He was jittery, no question about it, but trying hard to keep his anxious feelings locked down tight. You're gonna need to haul a load to a laboratory that, well, how do I even explain this to you? He started. His voice wavered slightly as he searched for words. The young trucker, fresh-faced and eager, stopped shifting restlessly from foot to foot and decided to toss his boss a hint. Is it a bigwig contract from the top dogs or some shady off-the-books deal? Watch your mouth, kid, the depot boss barked sharply. He quickly lowered his voice to a rushed whisper. It's a company job, plain and simple. That answers everything, doesn't it? Jake Dawson slid into a creaky chair across the desk and thought it over quietly. It was his first time tapped to haul something this strange, to a place like that no less. Hey, Chief, why's this plum job falling right into my lap? He asked with curiosity in his tone. Because every other driver's booked up tight, and this run's urgent, Chief replied with a grumble. Now pay attention. You're dropping this load near Cherrywood Hollow, just outside Crystal Falls. The depot boss stepped over to a detailed road map of New York City, its sprawling suburbs, and nearby rural counties. He waved Jake over to take a closer, careful look. Here's the plan, Chief continued. His nasal twang cut through the stillness. Head east on I-90 through Yonkers and White Plains, almost a straight shot to Albany. You'll hit Pine Hollow and a junction. Left is I-87, right is Route 32 toward Crystal Falls. Take I-87 via Albany's South Bypass, then go south and turn left at Nickel Creek. I'll send exact coordinates and a full rundown once you've got the map. All clear now? Not entirely, Jake replied. He squinted at the map with a puzzled frown. What's holding you up? Spit it out already, Chief demanded. His tone sharpened with impatience. I could have mapped this whole route myself, probably better with my own know-how, Jake said. A sly smirk played on his lips. Why not let me roll solo without all this hand-holding fuss? It's starting to feel like a guided sightseeing tour. I know you, hotshot. You're a cocky one, but I've got strict orders from the higher-ups, Chief said. He pointed a thick finger toward the ceiling for emphasis. You stick to the plan with no funny business or detours. They'll track your every move at each major checkpoint along the way. Paranoia's kicking in again, Jake mumbled under his breath. His words were barely audible. I'm telling you, kid, Chief whispered with an edge, it's a company job, clear as day. They say jump, you ask how high and don't argue. They've got it all worked out. It makes your life easier. Just follow orders. Got it now? Got it, loud and clear, Jake nodded. He leaned back slightly in his chair. Loads 400 pounds of smack, due in a day, with a nice rush bonus? You'll be golden in my books forever, plus a solid bonus to boot. Clear enough? Perfectly clear, Jake nodded again. He met Chief's gaze steadily. All right then, good deal, Chief said. He rose from his creaky chair and offered a meaty, calloused hand. You're set, kid. 3 hours after loading, Jake's truck, packed with that magic dust, pulled onto I-90 from the depot. Luck wasn't with him. He hit every Friday traffic jam leaving NYC. Cursing quietly to himself, he knew the 260 miles would take 4 hours on a good day. Those city folks fleeing to cabins or relatives in the summer heat were sapping his energy. This load carried heavy responsibility. But 7 miles past the city limits on I-90, the truck with its 400 pounds of powder broke free of the choking traffic and gained speed. It rolled east toward Crystal Falls, a quiet little town. Jake Dawson had turned 25 just 2 months ago, but he was no rookie at the wheel. The roar of an engine and the grip of the steering wheel were part of him since childhood. His father, Pete Dawson, a tall and sturdy veteran of American trucking, was a master of the trade in his time. Jake arrived late in Pete's life, at 40, because the man spent his younger years hauling loads across the country. A long-haul driver, like the legends of the open road's heyday, Pete lived for the highway. He met a stunning woman at 35, married her after a whirlwind courtship, and 5 years later, Jake was born. A spitting image of his dad, his mom often said with a proud smile. She was right. Jake was a restless spirit, made for the road from the start. At 10, he knew the gearshift spot, how to ease the clutch, and how to brake smoothly. Pete took him on short trips whenever possible. There wasn't much else for a kid before school started anyway. College came at his mom's urging, but by his second year, Jake knew it wasn't for him. Then came the army, motor pool duty, courier jobs, and a stint as a cabbie. Memories of taxi life soured his mood. He spat out the window and swore aloud. That loudmouth woman who flipped out, "Drive faster, you dumb hick, hope you crash. I'd give anything to forget her," he growled through clenched teeth. Ever since that rotten day, he'd carried a superstition. If that cabbie woman popped into his head, trouble was lurking nearby, no doubt about it. Today, with a job this big, his first real high-stakes haul, Jake wasn't one to shy away from a challenge. If it needed doing, he'd grit his teeth and get it done, no matter what stood in his way. So he turned the radio up loud and guided the truck toward its destination with focus. Mid-September was a beauty this year. Trees glowed with golden hues but still held patches of lively green. A cool breeze flowed into the cab as fields passed by outside. Tractors churned the soil, dusty paths led off to trailer parks and sleepy hamlets, small towns stood with their 5-story walk-ups, and clusters of factories and strip malls dotted the land. Bridges crossed over babbling creeks, and lakes sparkled in the afternoon sun. Ahead of Jake lay a long stretch of gray asphalt, marked with white lines here and there, pointing the way forward. After passing Albany and taking in its quaint charm, church steeples shining and old colonial vibe strong, Jake made the turn as instructed by Chief's plan. Fueling up went smoothly, but as he returned to the truck, the sky darkened suddenly. A gust whipped up dust clouds, and the roadside woods turned black as night before his eyes. Jake blinked in disbelief. He'd never seen such a thing. Raised practical despite a childhood baptism, he scoffed at ghost tales. It made no sense. It had to be his imagination. He shook his head, and the sky returned to a pale autumn gray. Leaves were yellow-green again, just right. After paying at the pump, Jake resumed his drive, brushing off the odd moment. No trouble slowed him until he reached the left turn at Nickel Creek, right on time. Following Chief's coordinates, he pulled up just north of Cherrywood Hollow, a peaceful spot. A nagging unease mixed with a strange hunch crept into Jake's chest as he stopped. It wasn't a common sensation, and his whole body tightened, muscles stiff with tension. He blamed it on concern for the truck's frame. The GPS directed him onto a rough, rutted dirt path that spelled trouble. "Son of a gun, this is crazy," Jake muttered. He smacked the wheel in frustration with both hands. "I don't have money to blow on 50 grand in repairs for this rig." Then he noticed something strange. He was alone on the road, utterly solo. Dusk was settling in slowly, but it wasn't dark enough for everyone to disappear. No cars, no bikes, not even a lone runner crossed his path. The world seemed deserted. A chill gripped him when he saw a white figure ahead, thin and almost translucent, hovering in the twilight. Every instinct urged him to turn back, but his hands and feet eased the truck closer to that odd shape, almost unwillingly. It was just a girl in a flowing white dress, standing alone. Lovely, with fine features and big brown eyes, her hair was neat under a flower crown. She waved her right hand and gazed at Jake's truck with a desperate plea. Bride on the run, maybe, he thought, pressing the brakes gently to stop. "Hey, your ride break down out here?" he shouted, leaning across to the passenger window with a call. "No, I just need to get into town real bad," the sweet-voiced stranger answered. Her tone was soft and musical. "I'm coming from the city myself. I've got a tight delivery to make," Jake replied, rubbing his neck. "I don't care which direction, just need to leave." Please take me. I'll pay you later if you want, she begged. Her voice shook with urgency. Jake paused, weighing it in his mind for a moment. I'm not supposed to. Company rules are strict. Even if it's just cargo, it's a no-go, he said firmly. Please, you're my only chance to get away. Tears glistened in her wide eyes, catching the faint light. Jake's heart softened at her plight. Poor girl, probably ran from a wedding with nothing but the clothes on her back, he thought. If I hide her in the sleeper during checks and drop her off later, it won't mess things up. I can't leave her here. Who knows who might pick her up next? All right, climb in quick, he agreed, giving in to her request. Despite her delicate dress and slight frame, she hopped into the passenger seat nimbly and buckled up fast. Jake gave her a mental nod for her quick thinking. You know these back roads well? He asked, glancing her way. Yeah, sort of local, you could say, she replied with a faint smile. Guide me to Cherrywood Hollow then, all right? Next left, down that dirt path over there, she pointed. No way, Jake interrupted, shaking his head firmly. I'd wreck half my truck on that mess. Got another way that won't ruin me? She thought for a second, then brightened with a smile. Yes, about 10 miles ahead. I'll show you if needed. Deal? Aiming for the next turn ahead, Jake decided to chat with his new passenger. They rode quietly for a bit, each wrapped in their own thoughts. Jake kept his sharp eyes on the road but stole quick looks at her. He dubbed her Agatha in his mind. Slender as a reed, pretty as a peach, with long black hair tied back and a few curls framing her face, she caught his eye in the cab's dim glow. A spark of fear flickered again, tied to this risky situation he'd landed in. It felt foolish, but he couldn't shake it no matter how he tried. Night fell fast over the countryside. Dusk faded into a cool, cloudy darkness that enveloped them. The forest along the highway turned into shadowy walls, like an endless corridor of asphalt marked with stripes. Not a soul stirred. No cars passed, no headlights shone, not even a cyclist rolled by. Jake's nerves buzzed with unease. My deadline's closing in tight, he thought, gripping the wheel harder. So where's this detour you mentioned? He asked Agatha, cutting through the silence. She nodded slowly, but the quiet lingered, stirring his nerves further. I need to shake this off, he decided, asking casually, you say you're local here. Born and raised around these parts, I assume? Pretty much, in a way, she murmured. Her voice was soft as a whisper. Then why head to town? Not planning to beg on the streets, right? My aunt lives there. I thought I'd stay with her until things settle down, she said, fidgeting slightly. Settle down from what? Jake asked, turning to her. They force you to the altar or something? Well, sort of, I suppose, Agatha replied. Her eyes dropped, and after a pause, she sighed deeply. Taking a deep breath, Agatha spoke up with a steadier voice. He cheated on me, the jerk. Before the wedding even happened, can you imagine that? She flung her hands up in frustration. Running around like a stray dog, chasing anything he could, and even tried to hand me over to his sleazy boss. Hand you over how? Jake asked. His eyebrows rose in surprise. Not sell me exactly, she said, fumbling for words, more like let him use me to snag a promotion at work. That rotten scumbag. Jake exclaimed. He slammed both hands on the wheel in anger. What did your family and friends say about it? What about them? She sighed heavily again. They all kept saying again and again, he's a good guy, what more do you want? I'm glad I left. No sense sticking around for that misery. Oh, look out, Agatha said suddenly, pointing ahead. There's our turn coming up right now. Finally, Jake said loudly. He slowed down and began the turn carefully. The headlights lit up tall tree trunks and dense forest, black as pitch in the late hour. He checked the clock. It was only 8, yet it felt like midnight. That bad feeling grew stronger. Run, it shouted in his gut. A prickling sensation ran over him. He knew he should get out fast. He glanced right to check for traffic and saw nothing unusual. Agatha sat quietly, nodding when their eyes met, but that nod felt strange, unsettling. It seemed she'd counted on him turning exactly there, nowhere else, like it was all planned out. Jake maneuvered the truck smoothly onto the dirt road. Tires kicked up dust as gravel crunched beneath them, calming his jangled nerves just a bit for a moment. The GPS had lost signal miles back, and the radio played nothing but static. Something was very wrong here. He could feel it in his bones, a deep unease settling in. "Jake, don't worry, sweetheart," a gentle voice said near his ear. Agatha's soft touch brushed his shoulder. Her lips grazed his ear, warm and close. It felt nice, but a shiver of fear ran through him too. Then the headlights revealed a dead end. The dirt path stopped abruptly at a wall of thick woods. "What in blazes is this?" Jake yelled. He slammed the brake hard, halting just shy of towering pines. The engine rumbled low, ready for a rest after the long drive. "Where did you take me?" he demanded, turning to her with fury in his eyes. Her gaze had changed. No longer meek or kind, it was two dark voids staring back, cold and piercing. "Where you're meant to be," she said. Her voice turned low and gritty, like stones grinding together. A shock jolted through Jake's body, sharp and sudden. Everything flashed bright white for an instant, then turned a deep, bloody red. Only the cab's outlines and that eerie hitchhiker remained clear in his blurred sight. For a brief moment, Jake thought Agatha showed her teeth, sharp and wild like an animal's. Then everything went blank, swallowed by darkness. How long had he been unconscious? His head pounded fiercely, and a searing pain burned below his right ribs. His body felt absent, leaving just a tormented mind cursing endlessly. He cursed that roadside girl, himself for pitying her, this job, the boss who sent him, and everything else in his rotten luck. It was pitch black all around, not a hint of light anywhere. He tried to feel his surroundings with numb hands. His ears rang with silence. His eyes couldn't cut through the gloom, and his hands were bound tight behind him. His shoulders ached, barely able to move. Pain mingled with anger and regret, churning inside him. "I let her in, didn't I? She spun a tale, and I swallowed it whole like a fool. Why did I take this job? Now I'm nowhere, 400 pounds of dope vanished, some drug kingpin left hanging." Jake fought to regain control of his dazed mind and sore body. His hands were tied securely, his legs bound too, and his mouth was sealed with a wide strip of duct tape. His bones throbbed from lying on something hard and cold, likely metal. Damp spots touched his hands occasionally, maybe condensation or spilled liquid, he couldn't tell. Thank heavens it's not my own mess. It doesn't smell anyway, he thought, grasping for calm. He kicked the surface beneath him. It echoed with a metallic clang. A container? My truck perhaps? He couldn't finish the idea. A door squeaked open nearby, and a flashlight beam hit his face, forcing him to squint against the sudden light. "That's him, no doubt," a rough, gravelly voice declared confidently. "Pull him out now or handle the others first," another asked. His voice was high and cracked, like a stern teacher's. "What did he say?" "Take him to check." "All right, grab this fool." "Hold the light steady," the first voice snapped back irritably. A bulky figure climbed inside. Heavy boots thudded on the floor as he approached Jake. The man was broad, draped in black, his face hidden under a deep hood like a monk's. Jake felt strong hands grab his legs and drag him roughly across the surface. Outside, the second man with the cracked voice lifted him to his feet with effort. Jake tried to take in his surroundings. They'd hauled him from his own truck, now empty of its cargo. "Where's my load? Who are these people?" Panic surged within him, wild and urgent. He struggled and tried to shout, but the tape turned his cries into muffled grunts. "Quiet, punk," the big man roared. He kicked Jake's backside hard for emphasis. Jake twisted desperately, pulling at his hands with all his strength, but they were secured with tight zip ties and extra tape. His captors laughed harshly. The sound echoed through the trees around them. "Look at him squirm. We need him intact. Lift him, don't drag," they commanded coldly. They grabbed him under the arms and carried him deeper into the dense woods. Their boots crunched on the ground. Jake stopped resisting. He needed to save energy and watch for a chance to escape. Night had deepened, stars blocked by thick clouds above. They moved forward with a powerful flashlight piercing the darkness. Trees swayed, and twigs snapped loudly underfoot. As they progressed, Jake saw faint glimmers in the undergrowth ahead, possibly campfires. In his younger days, he'd loved camping with family or friends on weekends, grilling burgers or gathering berries. He could spot a fire's glow from afar easily. At first, he doubted his eyes, but the flames grew clearer with each step they took. Dread flooded him. His head buzzed loudly, and his stomach and ribs ached with every jolt. Are they going to burn me? Torture me? I'm in deep trouble. God, save me, his mind pleaded, expecting the worst pain imaginable. He had no idea he'd see something far more horrifying. They brought him to a clearing surrounded by trees. Small stones were placed between the trunks, marking the space ominously. Around 7 figures in black robes, matching his escorts, stood silently in the clearing. A huge bonfire roared at the center, logs arranged in a teepee shape and circled with smooth stones. A totem topped with skulls loomed above, stark and grim. A large pentagram was etched into the sand, stained red with what looked like blood. Each point held a skull and a lit torch. Animal skulls, perhaps from dogs or foxes, lined the totem's sides. A human skull, weathered white, sat at the top. More human skulls glared from the pentagram's tips, as if death itself watched with glee. An old man leaned on a long black staff covered in white occult symbols that faintly shimmered. "Master, your will is fulfilled as you wished," the bulky man announced. He bowed deeply with reverence. The other escort bowed too, his face swallowed by his hood's shadow. The one called Master turned slowly. In the fire's glow, Jake saw a face like something from nightmares, a silver beard, a sharp nose, and eyes burning with small red sparks of malice. "Place him aside for now, my children, over there. His turn comes last tonight," the old man said. His voice creaked like an unoiled hinge. Jake struggled again, but they dragged him to the clearing's edge and dropped him roughly beneath a tall pine. Only then did he notice 2 other captives nearby, a young redhead, maybe in her 20s, and an older woman with gray hair under a headscarf. Both looked at him with eyes full of despair, silently pleading for help. Shame and anger flared in Jake's chest. He should have been their rescuer, but he was trapped just like them, powerless to act. Their fear spread to him quickly. It was obvious none of them would leave alive. The robed figures prepared for their ritual with grim intent. 2 carried out old silver bowls that glinted dully, while 3 others brought a spear, an axe, and 2 decorated saws. The rest knelt and began a low chant, swaying in unison like they were entranced. The master held his staff, tapping the ground steadily, and struck a large drum with a padded stick in his other hand to keep rhythm. They set their eerie tools in a line, then formed a circle around the clearing. They knelt again, joining the haunting chant that rose into the air. The master tilted his head back and shouted words Jake couldn't understand, strange and foreign. He wanted to cover his ears, but his bound hands wouldn't move. All he could do was close his eyes tightly and pray for a swift end. Suddenly, everything went silent. The master let out a gurgling sound, like water draining from a sink. His followers pressed their hands to the ground and bowed their heads in submission. The quiet grew thick, merging with the heavy darkness all around them. The master bent backward into an impossible arch and held the pose, shocking Jake and the others with the sight. No one can balance like that, Jake thought, his mind spinning in disbelief. A shrill, unearthly scream tore through the silence. It was so loud his ears ached. Pain and terror twisted their faces into grimaces. Jake thought the sound alone could send someone to hell. It stopped as abruptly as it began. The cultists remained still, and the master stayed bent backward. Then he straightened up fast. The redhead was the first target. She screamed through her taped mouth, frantic and muffled, but 2 of the master's men seized her and pulled her to a smooth stone altar. They cut away her clothes, restraints, and taped with ornate knives, swift and precise. "Let me go, please," she cried out, but the master struck her hard across the face. "Be silent and wake up, Sister Agatha," he growled fiercely. He turned to the woods and shouted 3 times, "Sister Agatha! Sister Agatha! Sister Agatha!" Jake knew who would appear next, and he was right. Pale, dressed in white, with long black hair, Sister Agatha stepped forward. Her dark eyes fixed on the trembling girl with chilling focus. Agatha approached slowly and ran her small hands over the girl, as if to soothe her like a friend. Then she grabbed her shoulders tightly and bit into her neck with force. Horrible sucking sounds followed, loud and wet. The redhead's scream turned into a hoarse wheeze, then a bubbling gasp as she faded. Her skin grew pale quickly, making her copper hair stand out sharply. Her back bent in agony, her legs gave way, but Agatha kept her upright, teeth buried deep. After a time, Agatha pushed her away, content, and let out a wild cry toward the fire. The same two men dragged the lifeless body to the totem and chained it to a post marked with twisted crosses and pentagrams. They stacked branches and cloth at her feet, then poured liquid over it all. The sharp smell of gasoline filled the air. The master lit a torch and spoke in a rising voice, "Come, protect us from sorrow and the unbelievers. Come to us, Beelzebub. Our souls seek your light and wisdom. Come to us, Beelzebub." He threw the torch onto the pile. Fire erupted instantly, consuming the post and body. It rose high, carrying the stench of burning hair, flesh, and fuel. A scream of torment and fury pierced the night. The cultists stood up, raised their hands, and sang a mournful chant into the smoky haze. Jake watched with wide eyes, barely able to stay conscious through the horror. It was a living nightmare with no escape. He knew he'd share the girl's fate, one way or another. Agatha had tricked him completely, and he'd fallen for it like an idiot, believing every word. The older woman beside him hardly moved. Her eyes were closed, hope long gone from her weary face. The flames died down suddenly, and the redhead emerged, naked and perfect, with glowing green eyes. No scars or blood marred her skin, only a strange radiance. She was stunning yet dreadful. Her face held a hint of that cabby woman, Jake's old sign of bad luck, flickering in her features. The master and his group stopped their chant and fell to the ground, bowing deeply as if she were a queen. Agatha knelt too, gazing up at the reborn figure with reverence in her dark eyes. The girl stepped down and touched Agatha's cheeks, a twisted connection between them, like a demon and its follower. A loud shriek broke out. The fiery woman opened her mouth wide, and her hands flared with red flames. Agatha cried out as burning claws stabbed into her, tearing through her chest and heart in a swift, bloody strike that splattered the earth. Agatha's body fell limp and began to rot instantly, smelling like a corpse left for years. Her beauty turned grotesque before their eyes. The fiery woman laughed, a high-pitched, grating sound like a bird's call. The cultists came to their senses and ran in all directions, fearing for their lives. Only the master stood steady. He removed his inner clothes, leaving just his marked black cloak, bold and unafraid. "My fiery queen, my joy," he said hoarsely, "come into my arms at last. Make your summoner happy." He opened his arms to her warmly. She gave him a sly smile, then struck quickly. Jake saw fiery claws catch the old man low, digging deep into his body. He screamed as she lifted him and threw him onto a tree branch, impaling him like a skewer. Blood flowed as he writhed briefly. The madness continued, but Jake no longer cared what happened to him, burned or torn apart, as long as it ended soon. He awoke in an ICU, surrounded by machines and noise. They said it was dehydration and hunger that knocked him out. At first, he thought it might be heaven or some in-between place, but it was just a regular hospital in Crystal Falls. For several days, Jake faded in and out, weak and confused, asking about his truck, the cult, and the redhead who burned in the woods. The doctors waved him off, saying, "Rest now," and offered pills or injections, urging him to sleep more. He wrestled with it for 10 days, lost in a fog. He told a cop the full story of the ritual, up to the fiery girl's appearance. The officer wrote it all down carefully, asking for details and clarifications. At last, Jake found the nerve to ask what had been gnawing at him. "Officer, how did they find me out there? I passed out during that chaos and can't recall a thing afterward." The cop looked around the ward, where 3 or 4 other patients lay, and spoke softly. Hunters and a ranger saw odd smoke in the woods on their patrol. They found mutilated bodies hanging from branches, torn up like by claws, a real grisly scene. One decayed corpse was there, plus 2 tied up alive, you and an elderly woman. It's a wonder wolves didn't get you. They roam thick this time of year. Jake gulped, picturing the horror, bodies dangling, blood soaking the ground, occult relics smoldering. It was a dark terror he couldn't shake. We haven't identified her yet. She was dead when we arrived, the cop said, shaking his head sadly. Jake's eyes grew large. Her too? Was it a heart attack? Your brunette trickster is still missing, no sign of her. The redhead you mentioned, killed first. We found a burned body with bits of copper hair. It could be her, the cop said, checking his notes. Jake nodded as things started to connect. Who were those lunatics behind it all? We're still investigating, the cop replied loudly, then leaned in to whisper, it was a cult, into some twisted satanic stuff, waiting for Beelzebub to serve him. They began with animals, then livestock, and later people started disappearing around here. We thought it was just kids at first, until you got caught. Your boss, Dan Carter, chief, set you up. Jake sat up sharply, wincing in pain. That's impossible, pure madness. It's tough to believe, I know, the cop said with a nod. Your cargo was gone too. They used and sold the smack to hospitals and clinics, all over. They meant to kill you as well. The lab coordinates were fake. Chief got paid big to lie to you. Jake clenched his jaw tight, teeth grinding in fury. Another thing, the cop whispered, go to church when you're home, kid. No demons to catch, and I doubt anything supernatural really happened out there, just a bizarre act. Still, better to be cautious. Maybe they did call something that took them all out. Jake felt crushed, his thoughts spinning. If it wasn't a dream or delusion, if it was real. Get better, Jake Dawson, the cop said, standing up. He shook Jake's hand firmly and left the room. Jake fell asleep soon after, exhausted from the questions and haunting memories. 3 weeks later, he was released from the hospital. His truck was found at an old farm, worn but usable. He drove it back to the depot carefully. The cop visited a few times for lineups and reenactments, but eventually let him go. Jake told them everything he remembered in detail. The depot crew greeted him like a hero, asking endless questions. He brushed them off or shared bits, but he moved like a shadow for weeks, drained. That night left him with gray hair and recurring nightmares. A month after returning, after a routine haul, Jake entered his apartment and smelled smoke, though nothing burned. In the hallway, he saw broken mirror pieces, a heap of soot and ash, and in it, a thick strand of copper-red hair shining faintly.